Detective Sarah Chen had been questioning suspects for 15 years, but she'd never met anyone like Harold Martinez. The night security guard sat calmly in the interview room, describing how he'd neutralized 3 armed robbers with nothing but a flashlight and building knowledge. His terminology was wrong, his tactics were flawless, and his background check showed nothing but 20 years of quiet civilian work. Something didn't add up. Harold Martinez looked like any other 58-year-old security guard. Gray hair, reading glasses hanging from a chain, a slight paunch from too many vending machine dinners. He wore the standard Peterson Electronics uniform, navy blue shirt, black pants, and a badge that said security in faded gold letters. Nothing about him suggested he could take down 3 armed men half his age. But the evidence was undeniable. 3 suspects in custody, no shots fired, no injuries except some bruised egos and zip tie marks. The robbers themselves seemed confused about what had happened to them. "Let's start from the beginning," Detective Chen said, opening her notepad. "You were doing your rounds at Peterson Electronics. What time?" 2:15 a.m., Hal replied without hesitation. "I check the loading dock every 2 hours. Company policy." "And that's when you saw them?" "Heard them first. Glass breaking, east entrance. 3 individuals, moving with purpose, but not professionally." Detective Chen paused. "Not professionally?" Hal adjusted his glasses. "They were loud. Didn't check corners properly. Bunched up instead of maintaining spacing." "Mr. Martinez, how exactly does a security guard know about proper spacing and corner checking?" "Television, I suppose. CSI shows and such." But Hal's eyes didn't match his casual tone. They were alert, calculating, the eyes of someone who'd seen real danger and lived to tell about it. The security footage told a different story than Hal's modest account. Detective Chen had watched it 5 times, each viewing raising new questions. At 2:17 a.m., 3 men in hoodies had forced entry through the east door. They moved through the building with crowbars and a pistol, heading for the computer equipment. What they didn't know was that Harold Martinez had already seen them coming. The cameras showed Hal moving through the building like he had blueprints memorized. He didn't just know where the robbers were going. He knew where they would be. He cut lights in strategic locations, creating blind spots and confusion. He used the building's layout to funnel them into a narrow hallway. When the confrontation came, it lasted exactly 90 seconds. The first robber went down when Hal somehow appeared behind him in a corridor that should have been empty. The man's weapon went flying, and he hit the floor unconscious before his partners realized what happened. The second man turned to find Harold standing in shadows, flashlight beam directed at his eyes. He charged forward and ended up face down on the linoleum. Hal's knee pressed his back. The third robber, the one with the gun, never got a chance to use it. Hal moved with fluid precision, closing distance and disarming him in movements too fast for the security camera to capture clearly. "Mr. Martinez," Detective Chen said, leaning forward, "this is impressive work. Where did you learn these techniques?" "Self-defense classes. YouTube videos. You know how it is." "Actually, I don't. Our tactical consultant watched the footage. He says what you did requires years of professional training." Hal shifted in his seat. Detective Chen pulled out another folder. "Let's talk about your employment history. Peterson Electronics hired you 2 years ago. Before that, you worked as a maintenance supervisor at Mercy General Hospital for 18 years. Good references, clean record." "That's right. But before the hospital job, there's a gap. 20 years, from 1982 to 2001. No employment records, no tax returns, no credit history. It's like Harold Martinez didn't exist." For the first time, Hal's calm facade cracked slightly. "I traveled. Odd jobs here and there. Cash work. For 20 years. I like to keep things simple." Detective Chen had run background checks on thousands of people. She knew the difference between someone with a complicated past and someone with a hidden one. Harold Martinez fell firmly in the second category. "Mr. Martinez, I'm going to ask you directly. Have you ever served in the military?" "No, ma'am." "Special forces? Private security? Government work?" "Just a working man trying to make ends meet." But his posture said otherwise. Hal sat with perfect military bearing, hands positioned precisely on the table. When he spoke, his words were economical, precise. And those reflexes on the security tape, those weren't learned from YouTube videos. The interrogation was interrupted when Officer Mike Rodriguez knocked on the door. "Detective, the suspects want to talk." The youngest, barely 20, kept glancing at the door like he expected Harold to walk through it. "That old man ain't normal," he whispered. "He moved like smoke, man, like he was everywhere at once." The second robber, nursing a bruised jaw, nodded emphatically. "I've been in fights before. This wasn't a fight. This was professional." The third man, their apparent leader, was the most shaken. He knew what we were going to do before we did it. It's like he was reading our minds. Detective Chen exchanged glances with Officer Rodriguez. These weren't first-time criminals, and they weren't easily intimidated. Whatever Harold had done to them had left a lasting impression. Back in the interview room, Detective Chen tried a different approach. "Mr. Martinez, the suspects are pretty rattled. They keep saying you moved like a professional. They want to know if you're undercover law enforcement." Hal almost smiled. "Do I look like undercover anything?" "Actually, yes. You look like someone who's very good at being invisible." This time, Hal did smile, and for a moment, Detective Chen saw something different in his eyes. Not the mild-mannered security guard, but someone else entirely. "Detective, can I ask you something?" Hal said. "Go ahead." Those three men, they had a gun. They were willing to hurt innocent people for some computer equipment. Does it matter how they got stopped, as long as they're off the streets? "It matters because I need to write a report that makes sense. And right now, nothing about this makes sense." Hal leaned back in his chair. Sometimes the most important work gets done by people nobody notices. Janitors who keep buildings clean, teachers who shape young minds, security guards who keep the night watch. That sounds like experience talking. Maybe it is. Detective Chen realized she wasn't going to get a straight answer. Whatever Harold Martinez had done before Peterson Electronics, he wasn't going to volunteer the information. But she had one more card to play. "Mr. Martinez, we ran your fingerprints through the system. They came back classified." For the first time, Hal looked genuinely surprised. "Classified, above our clearance level. We got a call from someone in Washington asking why we were running queries on you." Hal was quiet for a long moment, his fingers drumming silently on the table. When he spoke, his voice had changed subtly. Less casual, more measured. "Detective Chen, what you saw on that security footage, that was an old man protecting his workplace. Nothing more, nothing less. And the classified fingerprints? Bureaucratic error, probably. You know how government systems can be." But Detective Chen had spent enough time around military veterans to recognize the signs. The precise vocabulary Hal used when he forgot to be casual. The way he unconsciously scanned exits when entering a room. The fact that he'd taken down 3 armed men without breaking a sweat. "Mr. Martinez, I'm not trying to expose any secrets. I just need to understand what happened here." Hal studied her face for a moment, then nodded slowly. "What happened is 3 criminals made a mistake. They thought they were robbing an empty office building. Instead, they ran into someone who wasn't going to let them hurt innocent people. And you're that someone? I'm a security guard doing my job. Everything else is just speculation." Detective Chen closed her notepad. She could push harder, but she sensed it wouldn't accomplish anything. Harold Martinez had given her enough truth to file a report and enough mystery to keep her wondering. "All right, Mr. Martinez, you're free to go. And thank you. Those men might have hurt someone if you hadn't stopped them." Hal stood up, adjusting his uniform shirt. "Just doing my job, detective." As he reached the door, Detective Chen called out one last question. "Mr. Martinez, were you really a maintenance supervisor for 18 years? Hal paused, his hand on the doorknob. "I maintained a lot of things, detective. Equipment, facilities, sometimes the peace." Then he was gone, walking down the hallway with the same unremarkable gait he'd probably used for years. Just another aging security guard heading home after a long night. But Detective Chen kept watching until he disappeared around the corner. Because now she knew the truth, even if she could never prove it. Harold Martinez wasn't just a security guard. He was someone who'd spent 20 years doing things that required classified fingerprints and government oversight. Someone who'd learned to be invisible, to blend into the background while staying ready for anything. Retirement, watching over a quiet office building, protecting people who would never know they needed protecting. The next morning, Detective Chen filed her report. 3 suspects apprehended during attempted robbery. No injuries. Civilian security guard acted in defense of property. Case closed. But in the margin of her notebook, she wrote a single line. Some heroes wear uniforms. Others wear security badges. A week later, Harold Martinez was back on his regular rounds at Peterson Electronics. The company had offered him a promotion and a raise, but he declined. He preferred the night shift, he said. Like the quiet. The only change was that the other security guards now looked at him differently. Word had gotten around about what happened. Nobody asked questions. Hal didn't encourage conversation, but there was a new respect in their voices when they said good morning. And sometimes, late at night, when the building was dark and silent, other guards would find themselves wondering about their colleague. Wondering what kind of man could take down 3 armed robbers with nothing but a flashlight and 20 years of experience in jobs that required classified fingerprints. But Harold Martinez just kept walking his rounds, checking doors and watching monitors, protecting a world that had no idea how much protection it needed. After all, the best security guards were the ones nobody noticed until something went wrong. And when something did go wrong, they were ready.